Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. You got your host DanK and episode 663, and our friend Mark is back and been doing some reading and got a book to tell us about, so we're looking forward to that. We have the standard announcements and such. The biggest one I want to jump right into, and listen, we need some more help on our TV show, and I've talked about it a little bit in the past, but I thought it needed to be more specific. We could use some help in the studio, mainly as a camera person. And also, as far as a camera person, I wanted to mention that we're also looking for someone, be the same person or somebody else, but to join the CTV29 organization. CTV29, it's only $10 a year, and they got incredible equipment. And these is, I just wanted to show the little Sony HD cameras that you can check out and film your projects. They're really easy to run. You see how small they are. And I could use somebody, once in a while I go to a meeting or something, and it's kind of hard to be an activist and cover a story, you know. So if I had somebody running the camera, it would be a big asset. So that's one of the things we can use, is a camera person in the studio and or outside the studio. So I just put a word out there to think about it, and sure get a hold of us if you could. I'd be interested in that, because you meet a lot of great people, and it's be some interesting times. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. And let's see. Oh yes, and the saying that I keep forgetting to bring up, I really like this: you can't spell healthcare without THC. I like that. And a big push on medical marijuana program. We would really like to see people participate, renew your card, because it's helping the program. We need to keep the numbers up in the program so we can keep our program. The state is trying to destroy the program like they have ever since it was implemented. And we've managed to keep it and save it, but it's in bad trouble because of the legislature and the deep-pocketed commercial businesses in cannabis. And so anyway, we need to support the program and fight for it. And they've formed a new commission now to oversee what's going on. So anyway, just wanted to invite or try to get people to participate in the medical marijuana program and support it. And so anyway, so that's my announcements, I guess. This is what I got so far. And I want to mention, oh yes, last week I went up to Portland to the Portland Normal meeting. And it was interesting. Had about 10 people there, including Lee Berger, and they're talking about perhaps forming an Oregon normal chapter that covers the whole state of Oregon, and then if they want to have subgroups, it could be a subgroup to that normal chapter, like in Eugene or Medford or Roseburg, whatever. So that was something that's been in the works. Let's see, I guess, so anyway, that's all I got to say about that, I guess. So we can jump into the program and talk about your book report, I guess.
Okay. All right, so this is a very good book. I highly recommend anybody that has anything to do with marijuana to read it. It's called Snitching, and it's written by a professor named Alexandra Natapoff. And then you know that the Attorney General of the United States still lists marijuana as a Schedule I drug. And so what that does is it still puts it on the radar with the feds and the state pigs. And so, you know, I lived in a redneck place in South Georgia where there was a lot of snitching. And one day a friend of mine from Jekyll Island, Georgia, was arrested by the Glenn County Drug Squad in Brunswick. And he came to me and said, they want me to snitch. And they said that they'll drop the charges. What do I do? Well, my neighbor happened to have been a good lawyer, so I introduced them both. And he got him a small fine, and everything was taken care of, and he didn't have to snitch. So I read this book, and you wouldn't believe what's in it. the system is dirtier behind the scenes than what a lot of people will ever know about it. And this book exposes it. And so for marijuana patrons of all aspects, I beg you to read this book. Okay, so snitches are getting people arrested and imprisoned because there's a deal that's made. Usually the deal is that the snitch stays out of jail if they can get people put in jail. And the introduction of the book begins in 2006 with the description and analogy of an innocent 92-year-old woman shot to death in her own home by police who was referred to the pigs, and I call cops pigs, by a snitch. Okay, so this snitch was not even allowed to be admitted into court to get a warrant. So what the cops did was they made up a fictitious person, and they told the judge a lie. Well, the snitch gave them bogus information. Anyway, they burst into this 93-year-old woman's home and shot her to death based on information from a snitch. And this is how snitching gets people in trouble. So if you are involved in marijuana and a snitch picks up on it, you know, you could have them coming in, and it's happened where narcs have gone into someone's houses with sledgehammers and just started tearing the place apart. Mm-hmm. And so this happened at 933 Neal Street in Atlanta, Georgia. And so Stop Snitching was also put out there. And what made it so popular was there was a basketball star, and he made a DVD about snitching. And then in 2006, an art crew known as Tat's Crew printed a cartoon mural in East Harlem that showed a rat with a noose around his neck with a sign that said "Stop Snitching." And so if you've ever heard the saying "Stop Snitching," these are some of the incidents that brought that about. Okay, so the most dangerous versions of snitching tend to occur when law enforcement deploys criminals to generate new cases. And the author mentions 28 people busted in Hearne, Texas. And so there's a lot of snitching gone wrong. And so the book explains the anatomy of how snitches work. And so you probably would want to read this. And there's also different kinds of snitching. You know, you have snitches from the big corporate world, and that's totally different than street snitching because they got their lawyers and they make a deal for a big fine, and you know, nobody really gets messed up. Okay, so in San Francisco, they mentioned how the pigs worked with a snitch named Marvin Jeffrey, who was running an identity theft ring. And he expanded it and picked up extra arrests. Well, not only was he violating his parole, but he dropped out of nowhere after he sold an AK-47 that killed a cop. Now, these are the kind of people that they use for snitching. Marvin Jeffrey's informal understanding with the pigs was also included written contract deals with his lawyer and the DA, the district attorney. Mm-hmm. So what they do is the snitches will get their lawyers and they will work out a deal with the district attorney. Okay, so that's called prosecutorial discretion. Mm-hmm. Okay, so page 41 is about a 2008 case involving a young lady named Rachel Hoffman who got caught with illicit drugs. Okay, and the pigs threatened her with prison and flipped her into becoming a snitch. And this is what happened to my friend on Jekyll Island. And so she agreed to set up some people to buy drugs and a firearm for the pigs. And they had no regard for this woman's life. And ABC News 2020 had done a television show to question, they questioned about her death during the time. Well, the people that knew Rachel said that she was described as being naive, dainty, frail girl. You know, she was like a college student down in Florida. And so, anyway, she ended up getting killed. And that's not the only thing. What's even worse was a 16-year-old girl named Marfa Puebla. And what they did was the cops told a criminal that she snitched them off to try to get the criminal to do a confession. The criminal never did a confession, and then Marfa Puebla, 16-year-old, ends up dead because of that. All right, so that's some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So anyway, this book is very good. I was reading where this one guy, he was into heating and air conditioning, and he goes to the DEA and he says, hey, I'm good at what I do. I can break into houses and get you intelligence. If you can make all my burglary charges go away. And the DEA says, well, we'll talk to the district attorney and see what he says. And the district attorney says, well, if the DEA is satisfied with your performance, we'll do that. So this guy's breaking into homes while the DEA is keeping a lookout and gets a whole string of burglaries charged. And the people that get arrested aren't as bad as he is. And so, and that's usually the cases with snitching.
Right.
And so, so this goes into, and I'll read you some of the stuff that they have, beyond unreliable, secret justice, snitching in the hood, stop snitching, we talked about that, defining informants, defense informants, police investigative guidelines. And let me tell you, the cops cut corners with these snitches. And so I highly recommend that you read it, because it doesn't matter what you're doing with marijuana. You could just be smoking it, you could be selling it, you could be buying it, whatever, you could be growing it, whatever you're doing in the marijuana industry. If a snitch picks up on your business and they get into a bind, they could just flip your name and address to quit so that they wouldn't have to do any time, and they could tell the cops anything and you could get killed, and it's already happened before. So I read this book. One thing that I want to say that I've learned about snitching and how the cops control a lot of people in the metropolitan cities is they pretend to be mafia. And that enables them to not only gather intelligence, but by using fear and intimidation, they can mobilize people to move around like that too. So that's one of the things that they do. I've heard of them hiring people as couriers to drive by residents or businesses, and the people think that it's the mob, and the people driving by are just hired as couriers and are given that route, and they don't even know what's going on. And so that gets into gang stalking, known as counterintelligence stalking, known as cause stalking, which is also mixed up with snitching. And so
yeah, the case about the college girl. I think that's I've heard of that case. Yeah, that's a horrible thing.
Yeah, because this girl had no business being a snitch, you know, because usually snitches are like sociopaths, compulsive liars. They're bold, you know, and a lot of them are in it for the adrenaline. And this girl was none of that. You know, she was frail. She was described as being dainty, and so she got killed. You know, because you know they turned on her, and she probably admitted that she was the one doing it before they could get to her. You know, before the cops could get to her, and the people that she snitched off killed her.
Wow, oh, nasty.
I also read in here where people that were from Mexico were being set up with drugs that were laced with cocaine so that they could be deported, and they use a snitch to do that too.
Okay, so it shows we got to end the first half. We're going to be right back with the second half.
And now a message from the American Marijuana Growers Association.
Hi, I'm a farmer, and I work hard every day to grow high-quality marijuana, the biggest cash crop in these United States. I'd like to thank you for your support of U.S. marijuana policy. Because marijuana is illegal, I don't have to pay taxes. Even better, prohibition leads to artificially inflated prices, which means a better quality of life for me and my family, as long as I don't get caught. Just as importantly, your tax dollars support thousands of U.S. agents who work tirelessly to keep low-grade, foreign marijuana out of our country. So thank you, America. And remember, Whether you're nauseated from chemotherapy or just in the mood for a nice cool buzz, choose the best pot in the world, American Homegrown.
Welcome to the second half, Eugene Cannabis TV, episode 663. You got our friend Mark and your host here, DanK. And we've been talking about the book that Mark's been reading called Snitching. We'll get back to that in a minute. There was a note earlier that I was speaking about supporting medical marijuana, and I've forgotten where my notes were, and I remember them. They're still in the book that I found them in. Oregon Leaf, the Harvest issue, which is the November issue, has a great article titled Safety and Quality of Cannabis Products in the Age of Corruption. I won't get into the article, but the sidebar is what I was going to bring up, and it says the newly formed Cannabis Commission is taking public comments before they decide the future of the Oregon medical marijuana program. This is your last chance to make your voice heard before the new rules are drafted, so don't miss it. And that's going to be in Portland. Of course, it's in Portland. See, they always follow this stuff in Portland, you know, so you got to go all the way to Portland, to, you know. But anyway, they do take comments, both email and by mail. So, but anyway, that's going to be at 9 a.m. on December 1st in Portland at 800 Northeast Oregon Street at 9 a.m. on December 1st. So put that in the catalog, get a hold of, calendar, be sure and get a hold of us, and we really need to get people to turn out for this. And if you can't make it, like I probably won't, you can either email or send it by mail. And I think I'll send mine by mail. I'm too concerned that they email, they'll just ignore it. Mail, at least they got something, you know.
I want to mention that downtown, the train station in Eugene goes to Salem, so you could always.
This is in Portland.
I mean,
But
Portland.
Yeah,
It goes to Portland.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's pretty reasonable too. I know our friend John used to go that way all the time. Go up there. But
So you always catch a train.
yeah. So anyway, again, support your medical marijuana program, because the state is trying to destroy it, just like they have since it was implemented in 1998. So we still got to keep fighting for the program, because it is helping people. And people say, well, why do we need a medical program? We have recreational. Well, first of all, there's taxes. Patients don't have to pay taxes under the medical marijuana program, so that helps them afford their medicine. And also, we need it for research, because there are different people that are keeping track of different strains and what it's doing and how it's helping and what different strains are good for, that kind of thing. So anyway, you need to support them. So I wanted to jump in and give that update. So yeah, the book on snitching, and so what are your big takeaways from that? Or
one important thing that I forgot to mention that this book did talk about was the jailhouse snitch. You know, and so, you know, if you're getting arrested for anything, you know, we're talking about marijuana, and you go to jail, don't run your mouth. They got jailhouse snitches in there. And I was at an Anon march, and there was a jailhouse snitch in there. He was actually a cop, and he volunteered at this Catholic Social Services in Denver, but he had the Beatles tattooed on his arm, right? And so he used to brack us when we went out at night and come back in to see if we'd been drinking. Well, he was a jailhouse snitch, and he was talking to this guy with Anonymous. And I walked up and I said, hey, I know you. I go, you were from the Samaritan House. He goes, yeah, we were there. And I says, you're a cop. He goes, well, I used to be. I go, no, you're a cop. And you had even said when I was there that your brother was a cop. And this guy from Anonymous is like bewildered. So if you go into jail and someone wants to talk about your case, tell them, you know, my lawyer told me not to talk about my case. And I can't say nothing, because that's where a lot of snitching is going on. This lady got a grant, and she's from Loyola Faculty Research Fellowship Program, and she did an in-depth research about snitching. And this book is published by New York University Press, and the author is Alexandra Natapoff. And it's called Snitching, Criminal Informants and the Erosion of the American Justice. And so it really is. And so, Anyway, I highly recommend everybody read it. I've read it a couple of times, and it's the kind of book that you can read 2-3 times and still, you know, you over the years when you forget, you pick stuff back up, which keeps you more focused on how the snitch network works. And I call it snitch culture now because there's so much snitching going on, and they network, you know, and so it's gotten to the point where it's really, really rough, you know. So that's why when you got your marijuana, you know, you got to be private about it, you know.
Yeah.
And be careful of friends, because you never know, they could turn out to be a snitch.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and then yeah, a lot of times they'll be a snitch for which are trying to improve their situation. So their incentive is to help themselves, and yeah, it's not the best system in the world.
Yeah, what I've learned about this book, and also throughout life, is usually the people that the cops employ as snitches are worse than the people they're setting up or snitching off. You know, so
Well, me surprised. Yeah.
so they're usually worse.
Oh yeah.
So you know, you could, and there was a website too that was about snitching, and I'm trying to think of the name on it, but anyway, they had a data bank of all the snitches, and you can pay the money, and then you could go in and you could read about them, you know, and some of them were really bad people, you know. They had their truck with the acetylene torch where they could break into the houses, or they would give their best friend dope and just leave them for dead when they're overdosing. They're really awful people out there that are snitching, and the cops are even worse than they are. And you know, if they ever get you in an interview room and they say, all right, we're going to turn the tape recorder off, it's just me and you now, you know, tell me this or that. Well, they could turn the tape recorder off, but the whole interview room is still recording what you're saying. So all you're doing is just snitching yourself off or somebody else off. The FBI had built a brand new FBI building in Anchorage, Alaska, and they had an interview room called the Shock Room. And the reason they called it the Shock Room was they would call up people and they would say, we need your help. The FBI and the cops are always big on the word help. You know, they'll answer the phone, may I help you? If the SWAT team is going to break into your house and kill you, they'll tell you, we're here to help you. And people unknowingly were thinking they were going to help the FBI, and they go down to the interview room, which is really an interrogation room, AKA the shock room, and then the FBI turns on them and they're in shock. Oh, it's me that they're going to get, you know? Well, you know, you don't talk to the FBI, you talk to your lawyer, and your lawyer protects you from them. And that's why, you know, they have the Fifth Amendment, you know, in the Constitution.
Oh, yeah.
And so the forefathers of the Constitution wanted us to remain silent, you know, and protect us, because they came from England where, you know, they could force you into a confession, do whatever they want, you know, and the cops here do whatever they want. But it's to your advantage to not talk to the cops at all. And so read this, you know, even if you don't need to know the information, it's an entertaining book to read, and I highly recommend it.
You bet. Well, interesting. Now, that's Snitching by Alexandra Natapoff. Natapoff. Natapoff.
Right, and it was, I believe it was copyrighted around 2000, I want to say 2006, but I'm just going to make sure. 2009 by New York University Press.
Excellent.
So it's not that old of a book.
Yeah, so that's just a part of being educated and trying to learn more about your world.
Right, and maybe it'll stop people from getting their freedom taken away, and that's what motivates me to want to do these kind of interviews, to educate people so they don't go to jail or prison.
Oh yeah, they're definitely. Yeah, that's another thing. And even though pot is legal, you still have to be careful. For instance, driving around with it, you still need to use the basting bags or the baking bags. And I didn't bring one in with me either, but We used these when it was illegal, and you still need to use them because it cuts down the smell.
Or you could vape.
Well, you know those plastic bags that you for cooking a roast in? They're special bags. They come like 3 in a package, or less than $3 for a pack of them, a pack of 3, and so they're very inexpensive. You put your herb inside that bag and give it a couple of twists and fold it over, and I'll tell you what, you won't smell it. I mean, I don't know that it would defeat a dog, but you don't get that smell. I'm telling you, I've done it so many times, and you open up that bag and feel, holy moly, you know. So, excuse me, they really work, and that's what happened. That's what I heard. That big producer, that Oregon producer that got caught in Nebraska. You hear about that one? He had a whole bunch of unprocessed pot and a bunch of oils and stuff, and anyway, he got pulled over in Nebraska. I don't remember if it was speeding or didn't use a turn signal or some fun, you know, and they pulled him over. And then they smelled pot, and so then that's when they found all this pot, you know. So here he is traveling from Oregon clear to Nebraska without any protection to cover the smell. And so all you got to do is use those bags, and they're not expensive. They're very reasonable, and they work. And so no matter what you're doing with your medicine, put it in one of those bags, and so that way you don't have noses, you don't have to worry about somebody's nose.
Or you can vape it. There's a device called an O-Pen, and they come with these oil cartridges. So when you're vaping, you don't have the carbon that's got the smell in it. And you can vape, and people can't smell it. I forgot the guy's name. He was out of Texas. He used to be a pig, and then he started becoming pro-marijuana.
Barry something.
Yeah. But what he says is, you know, instead of getting in your car with your girl or your friends and parking at Lookout Mountain and getting hot, you're better off driving around and getting high. Because if you're parked and they zoom up on you, you know, you're sitting there like a sitting duck. But if you're driving around, and then you got a better chance of evading them, you know. And they profile people. You don't want stickers. You don't want to be wearing a bunch of hats. There was a case where a guy had the Cocaine Connoisseur's Handbook, and a cop looked in and saw that and used that for reasons for a search, and the court upheld it. So if you got marijuana leaves, you know, taped onto your car, you know, stuck on it, or
excuse me, the show's coming to an end. We got to wrap up. So much.
Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything.